The battle that's raging between women's rights and transgender rights is a serious battle. It's a serious debate.
There are few issues more contentious than those surrounding gender, identity and protecting people's safety.
I think you've even lost work as a result of speaking out in this trans debate.
But with regards to the actual transgender issue,
the issue of the trans debate. I think Stonewall and other organisations took a policy of no debate and said that, for example, anyone can self-declare as a woman and therefore have access to women's spaces, rights and protections. And I think
I've got to jump in.
Until recently, I would guess most people had barely heard of transsexuals. Now they're the social cause of the event. A fierce, fast-moving campaign on their behalf, intensified by social media, is a sign to some of enlightened tolerance, to others a collapse of traditional standards.
Warning! Warning! There is a trans woman in the room. If you have any children, elderly relatives or pets, do not allow them to use the women's room. And welcome to the stage, Jedi! How you doing? You alright? Yeah. Can we have some lights on, please? Dude, I said I was dangerous. I'll fuck you up, Jacob. How are we? Are we alright? Thanks so much for coming. Let me get a little lay of the land before I start. Who in here is L, a lesbian? Welcome, you're welcome, great. Who in here is gay, a G? Yay. Don't care about bisexuals. I'm just playing, I am one, it's okay. Any transgender people in? Finally. Finally, what a slog it's been. I'll move this out of the way. I'm scared. I don't want anyone to trip over. Oh, by the way, that introduction that I just did, that was weird, wasn't it? That's a weird way to enter a room. But I completely acknowledge that. I'm sorry. The reason I did that, there is a reason. Oh God, how can I explain this? The law moves so quickly in this country. The reason I had to do that is, I don't know if you know this, but the government recently passed a law stating that all trans women have to introduce themselves to public spaces like that. So that's all that was. This wasn't, it's not my fault. Sorry, do we all know what? Sorry, I know there are some trans people in, but does everybody in the room know what a trans woman is? Okay. What show did you think you were coming to? This isn't Lady Boys of Bangkok. Not again. Other than Jordan Gray, that's my biggest competition at this festival. Okay, okay, well if you don't know what a trans woman is, it's like super simple, okay? All it means is that I'm just like any other woman in this room, except I can't feel empathy. Thanks, you like that one? That's dumb, that's a really dumb thing to say. I can feel empathy, I can. I think. Which one is that? What's empathy? That's the one where you like animals, isn't it? Right? It's the one when you're not a serial killer. Right? I'm experimenting with because I understand that not all of my audiences are trans, I mean obviously, but I'm experimenting with a more sort of relatable form of comedy, so who likes animals? Yeah. Good, thank God. I like animals. I'm a big animal stan. Big fan of them. I love cats, dogs, hamsters, whatever other ones there are. I'll tell you how much I love animals. Right, I love animals so much that at the beginning of this year, January, Don't say my stuff's not informative. So at the beginning of the year, I made a pact to animals, specifically tortoises actually, because I love a tortoise. Thank you, I'm a big fan of tortoises in. I made a pact, because I love animals, I'm a vegetarian as well, I made a pact that I was going to completely give up using plastic straws, And I did do that. I haven't actually used a single plastic straw since January, and I feel pretty good about that. Now, instead of using plastic straws, it's really easy. I just use one reusable, washable ivory straw. To the trans people in the room, let me ask you this. Are you alright? Are you angry? I've been, yeah, it's been a weird couple of years, hasn't it? I feel really angry lately, and I don't know why. There's a lot of reasons why it could be. You know, it could be because of the way that the UK is going, or it could be because I forgot to bring my antidepressants with me to Edinburgh. But you don't need them, do you? They're a myth. They're a placebo. But I have been angry. I think the whole thing has been affecting me, you know, like, it's affecting my mental health. Like, I keep forgetting things. I'm, like, more forgetful than I've ever been before. But I have to get this thing every 3 months, right? It's called a testosterone blocking injection. And what it is you go to the nurse, and she gives me, like, an injection in my bum. And I'm not 100% sure, like, what's in the needle. I don't know exactly what the chemical composition is. All I know is that, like, it blocks out the bad juju. The evil spirits. I'm like, be gone! And I'm supposed to get it every 3 months, and I went to have it done recently. And the nurse, she's really nice, but she was like, Jen, she was like, you know you're supposed to have this every 3 months. I'm like, yeah, I know. She was like, well, you haven't had it for 5 months. She was like, you're 2 months overdue for it. She was like, are you okay? Are you feeling okay? Are you having any kind of weird side effects? I was like, no. I was like, I feel absolutely fine, to be honest. Although, I have had an overwhelming desire to invest in cryptocurrency. Okay, interesting. How many people in the room identify as queer? Or some kind of gender non-conforming? Or, okay, great. The reason I do that joke is because I like to see how many queer-identified, gender non-conforming people are as susceptible to jokes about the differences between men and women. You failed miserably, right? So I'll give you something. Women be shopping, am I right, guys? You see them in H&M, they love it. Anyone on Twitter? Okay, cool. Yeah, I love Twitter. I got banned from Twitter recently. Not like a lifetime Graham Linehan ban, you know, like... do we know who Graham Linehan is, everybody in the room? Yeah. Anyone not know? Okay, that's fine. You might have been better off before tonight, but... So he's an Irish man, an Irish gentleman. That's what they call him. He was a writer, he still is, I guess, kind of. He's a writer, he wrote, like, famous sitcoms like Father Ted, The IT Crowd, Black Book, stuff like that. He was a big name. And then he became, like, really transphobic, and he was very abusive online, and he got banned from Twitter for life. Anyway, we're not here to talk about him. The point is that I didn't get that kind of ban. I got a 2-week ban, which is like a soft ban. It's like not as good. And but it's fine. Like I'm happy with it. But the thing is, it's like it stressed me out a bit because Twitter. I love Twitter. Like Twitter's the only social network that I kind of enjoy using. It's kind of like my safe haven. Like Twitter's the only place where you can go and you can call Piers Morgan like a piece of shit, and you know he'll read it. Like you know it will like negatively affect his day at some point. And so now I don't have that, and I feel stressed out, right? And it's a shame because like all I did to get banned from Twitter for 2 weeks is I called somebody a cunt. Okay, that's why. Now listen, I'm not proud of that. I don't generally like that word. I don't use it on a regular basis. It was an emotional moment. I called somebody a cunt, and I regret it. But does anybody in here want to hazard a guess as to who it was that I called a cunt? I've never heard of her. Is that a name? I don't know. That's weird. Anyone else?
Piers Morgan?
No, someone always says Piers Morgan, but no. Anyone else? No, you give up? Yeah? Okay. Well, the person that I called a cunt that got me banned for 2 weeks on Twitter is 100% true. It was Nunu from the Teletubbies. He is though, like... This is the problem, right? There's no nuance anymore, is there? There's no nuance in our debates and conversations. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I've got my phone on stage, and I know that's not like the most professional thing in the world. I'm not looking at notes for the show or anything. It's The reason I've got my phone on stage is because I'm in a fight online. I might not be on Twitter, but I've got a friend kind of keeping me updated, and I just need to check it. You know Graham Linehan I was talking about earlier? Well, like last year I met him at this thing called the LGB Alliance conference that I went to. Are you familiar with the LGB Alliance? They're sort of like an anti-trans hate group, right? And I went to the conference not because I believe in what they have to say, like I went for a laugh, right? And when I was there, I met Graham Linehan, like face to face, and ever since then he's been like writing blogs about me, like legitimately, like every couple of weeks I get like another update. I've been on his blog, so let me just have a look. This is probably one. Yeah, okay. So, do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, he says, Jen Ives is ugly. Jen Ives is nothing more than an autogynephilic, porn-obsessed, sex-crazed freak. It's not very nice, is it? It's hard getting called ugly. I don't like getting called ugly. Anyone else? It's not nice. It's not nice because, you know, like I'm a vain person. You know, like I am. A lot of trans women are. Like I worry a lot about my appearance. Like I'll tell you how much of a vain person I am. I know I'm a vain person because every time I look out of a train window, it's when it goes through a tunnel. That was a slow burn, I think. More of a megabus kind of person. But porn obsessed, like I'm not porn obsessed. That's a hot, what's he talking about? I'm innocent. I'm not quite an innocent person, I think. Like I don't think a lot about that kind of stuff. Like, in fact, I'll tell you how innocent I am. Like before I came out here tonight, I was sitting back there and I was fretting, I was worrying because I don't know if everyone in the room can see my knees. Maybe the light doesn't do it justice, but I have some of the most fucked up knees in comedy. They didn't mention it in the Times review, but it's worth something. I do, and I worry that people are going to get the wrong idea about my knees. Do you know? Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I worry that people are going to see them and they're going to go, "Oh, look at this trans woman! Oh, look at her knees. Oh, she had a nice evening last night, didn't she? Oh, what's that? Carpet burns, is it? Oh, on your knees," kind of thing. And it's not true. Like the way my knees got like this is. Sorry, are you guys? You weren't massively familiar with trans people. Are you familiar with buses? You have them here, right? You got a bus. So I was getting on a bus the other day, and I don't know, are there any bus drivers in? Sorry. Okay, good, because you wouldn't like this bit if you're a bus driver. Like bus drivers, like, do you remember like bus drivers? They used to be gentlemen, didn't they? They did. They used to be gentlemen. They used to wait for you to sit down when you got on the bus. And I know at the moment we're supposed to be like, oh, solidarity with the train drivers and that, which I agree with. But can we also agree that bus drivers are like massive pieces of shit? Because I was getting on a bus the other day, right? I was getting on a bus and I was going up the stairs and I had 2 big suitcases. And this bus driver, like, he just didn't even wait for me to get up the stairs. He just started pulling away, and I fell over on the stairs, and I fucked up my knees, and I fucked up my elbows, and I mashed up my front, and I was like, ah! And it was really awful, actually. But one good thing about it, one silver lining to it, is it gave me like a really like profound insight as to where I am mentally at the moment. Like, you know, where my kind of headspace is, because I hadn't quite realised how bad it had got. Because a couple of years ago, if something like that would have happened, I probably would have like put my hands out to stop myself. But all I did is I just put my hands in the air and I just let Jesus take the wheel. I was like, what happens, happens, right? And that's sad. That's like a tragic place to be in, I think. Porn. I'm not porn obsessed. That's crazy. Who watches porn? Fuck off. One honest person in the room. You watch porn? Thank you so much. You're a brave person, and I appreciate that. You're fucking lawyers. Like, oh, we just come to comedy shows. Whatever. I'll say I watch porn, and that's brave for me to say as a trans woman, because as I've displayed, like, a lot of people have a lot of ideas about what that might mean, right? But I do. I watch porn. Does anyone in here watch trans porn? Okay, this is interesting, right? Who in the room is a straight identified man? Cool. Oh my god, you guys are so brave. Thanks so much for admitting that. Kings. The reason I ask, right, because although I do like pornography, what I like more, what I find more engaging is statistics about pornography. And one of the things that I got quite into is I was looking up like Pornhub and stuff. Like Pornhub do surveys every now and again, or they like look at their analytics. And one interesting thing a couple of years ago that Pornhub found is they did like a look at their sort of like analytics, and they found that trans porn was actually the most popular genre of pornography among straight identified men, right? I remember when I found out about that, I was like, whoa, that's like really surprising. But then I was like, oh, so I guess we're just a fetish to you? Is that we're just a fetish? I was like really moody about it. And then recently I checked them again, and I found that we'd actually moved down about 7 places. And I was like, oh no. What are we gonna do? Like, what are you guys, like, what are you watching now? Like what is it, like kids or something? Like, prove me wrong, get the numbers back up. I watch trans porn, I do. I'm sort of allowed, you know, it's kind of like my genre. But I don't watch it for the same reason that those people watch trans porn. I watch it for a weirder reason. The reason I watch trans porn, right, is just because I just think things have been so difficult for trans women in the UK over the past couple of years. Sometimes I just like to pop it on and see a trans woman having a nice time. I'm like, ah, look at her. She's loving that. Bless her little cotton socks, right? I reckon I could do trans porn. Like, I've always thought I could. I feel like I've got like the constitution for it, do you know what I mean? Because like when I was growing up, like we didn't, like, I'm a bit older, I'm like 32. Oh my god, I can't believe it. Yeah, it's true. But when I was growing up, I didn't have like the same sort of positive role models that a lot of trans people have now, you know. I didn't have like Heartstopper or whatever, like I had like meatspin.com, right? And I just feel like I've always had the constitution, like I feel like I could do it. Like I nearly did it. I nearly really invested and went full in during the lockdown. Do you remember the lockdown? Yeah, you don't want to hear about it. Like, no one wants to hear about the lockdown, but this is true. Like during the lockdown, I got like super close to doing it because there was no comedy work. You know, there was no money. Like I was really struggling. There were like Zoom gigs, I guess, but like I was like, they're degrading. So like I really contemplated. I actually started an OnlyFans account, and I made like a few videos. I posted some pictures, like from the neck down. Actually, not because of anonymity, just because I know what the boys like. Do you know what I mean? They love a headless trans woman. I know my market. But I was doing some research on there, right? I was kind of like trying to scope out the competition. So I looked up like the most successful trans sex worker performer that I could find, and it was this trans woman. She was a little bit younger than me. She was about 26, and she had like millions and millions of followers. She was like so successful. I was thinking like, God, she must be like raking it in. Like she must be doing so well. So I paid just to look at her videos, and I saw like the first video I saw, right, of this trans woman. And again, I don't know if you know this, but like trans women start hormones a lot younger now. You know, like they look amazing. They're like more sexually liberated. This trans woman, she in this video, she put like a, do you know like a rugby ball? You know like, she put like a whole rugby ball all the way up her bum hole, like all the way. And I'll never forget the first time I saw that video. I just thought, yeah. I'll give comedy another go. That's a real video, by the way. If anyone's interested, I'll send you the link after. Language is changing. You know, I don't. If there's like younger trans people in, you might not know this, but trans women used to be referred to in the media like quite often as like chick with a dick, you know, like Jerry Springer and stuff. Like she's a chick with a dick. Top 10 chicks with dicks fighting. Like, chicks with dicks. And I used to find that really offensive. You know, I used to think like, oh, that's like really regressive. But I don't know, like these days, like, and this might just be me because people aren't usually that responsive to this, but I would like kill to be called a chick with a dick these days, right? Because like, I think it was more progressive than we gave it credit for at the time. Like, things are getting worse. Like, at least like chick with a dick, if you think about it, like at least the chick part is at the forefront. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're a chick. You look like a chick. You walk like a chick. You talk like a chick. You're a chick. You're a chick to me. And you've got a little dick. It's fine. It's fine. You know, no one's perfect. You know. It's all right. But there's no nuance anymore. Now it's just like, you're a man. You're a man. You're just a man. That's all you are. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about this? I don't feel like I'm wrong. I think it's weird. I think things are really, really getting worse. I'm kind of worried about it. We got banned from sports, didn't we? Did you hear about that? No more trans women in sports. That's it. No more sports. Are you trans? You're not allowed to do sports anymore. Fucked up. Like, I remember when I heard that news, I was like, oh no. What am I gonna do? Like, why couldn't they have banned us from that when I was at secondary school? Who's got a dad? Anyone got a dad? Again, I'm trying to be relatable. I have a dad. He's a nice guy, actually. He's a big sports fan. I never really bonded with him growing up. It's a real shame. I give you the kind of idea, the kind of man my dad is. My dad is an ex-Millwall football hooligan. Okay, so we're familiar with that gender identity. He is. He bloody loves football. He loves it, and unfortunately we never bonded on it. Like, we just could never bond on it. We've never really bonded on anything. Actually, it's really sad. Like, the closest we got to bonding, actually, in like a really long time, it was during the lockdown, because I was like living with him because he was ill, and the most time we spent together was watching this film. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Have you seen The Greatest Showman? Well, my dad was like, it was surprising to me. My dad was like a really big fan of it. Do you know what I mean? So during the lockdown, we watched it like 17 times. Yeah, I counted. It was like, it was a lot. And don't get me wrong, like, does anyone in here like The Greatest Showman? We got any fans in? Yeah. It's probably the biggest pile of shit I've ever seen. Like, honestly, like, it's a terrible film. I love musicals. Like, I love them. But like, that is bad even for a musical. It's got like 3 songs, like, it sucks, I hate it, and if you like it, you really should be ashamed. But the interesting thing, watching it with him, is it was a nice bonding activity, you know. It was like, finally we were sort of getting closer, and also, like, I realised after watching it about 17 times, I'd say by about the 14th time, I started to realise that as shit as it is, and it is I can't express enough how shit it is, as shit as it is, The Greatest Showman, I did realise that it does actually have a very beautiful, sort of like lovely, important social and political message, doesn't it, The Greatest Showman? Like, The Greatest Showman, it has the message. It doesn't matter what you look like, sorry. I always get a bit emotional during this bit, sorry. It has the message that it doesn't matter what you look like. And it doesn't matter how much of a social outcast you might be. You can still find work in a circus. I just think that's sweet. But yeah. So my dad's in his 70s now, and I'm dead chuffed for him. Like, if you're like a straight white man who ate as much gammon as he did when I was growing up, like, in your 70s, I'm like, you did it, man. Like, well done. So every day is like a gift now. But he's in his 70s, and my dad, like, he really tries his best, you know. Like, I've been transitioning like quite a long time. I've been doing it like over 10 years. Like, I'm pretty good at it now, no big deal. And when I first came out to him, he reacted in the way that you would expect, like, a straight, white, ex-Millwall football hooligan to react. He was like, I'm gonna kill myself. Which he didn't do, thankfully. Thank you. I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done that before. But now, like, he's like now, he's like my biggest ally. Do you know what I mean? Like he tries his best, like all the time. Like he calls me his daughter, which is beautiful. Like he does that all the time. When it's my birthday, like he buys me like a really, really fruity birthday card, you know, with like a butterfly on the front, like a badge that says, "You're 6 today." He's trying. But I don't know, I think when you know somebody, it's like a ratio thing. It's like, you know, I've been transitioning over 10 years, I'm 32. When you know someone one way for a really long time, it is still difficult to readjust, and I've got empathy for that, you know. And as a result, you know, he still does fuck up sometimes, like he does. Like sometimes when we're out in public, like he'll misgender me, right? Or he'll use my old name in front of strangers, and it's like super awkward, and like I sometimes don't know what to do. But luckily, because he is in his 70s, if he does do that in public, I can just tell people that he has dementia. I'm like, don't listen to him, he thinks his wife's a cat, you know, she's been gone years. Family's weird, right? Trans people, family's hard. It's hard for everybody, but I think when you're trans, it's a little bit more sort of, I don't know, it's more noticeable. Because like, there are some family members that you don't see for a long time. There's some that you see every day, but there's some that you go like years and years and years without seeing, and that can have quite an impact on you when you kind of are changing, you know, physically. And I had to go to a family funeral, not a family funeral. That would be a fucking good Edinburgh twist though. We should have written that in from the beginning. And they're all dead! Where's my Edinburgh wall? No, like one of my family members died. One that I actually quite liked, my auntie. She was a lovely woman, and I went to the funeral. But the thing is, like, there are sometimes family members there that you haven't seen for a really long time. And an example is my uncle Keith. I've got an uncle called Keith, and I do. And he is a nice guy at his heart. You know, I can see that he's a really nice guy, but I don't see him often. And every time I do see him, we have to go through this like ridiculous pantomime where he sort of like pretends that he still doesn't quite get it, even though he's had like loads of time to get it. And I'll see him and he'll be like, "Oh, Jen, is it still Jen? Are you still going by Jen? Is that what it is?" He's like, "Okay." He's like, "Oh, it's so lovely to see you. Well, oh, hello. But how do I greet you? Oh no, I don't know how to greet you anymore." He's like, "What do I do? Do I give you a kiss on the cheek?" And he's like, "Oh no, that feels gay to me." He's like, "What do I do? Do I give you a firm handshake? Oh no, I've offended you, haven't I? I've offended you. Sorry, snowflake culture, I've offended you." And in the end, like, it got so ridiculous, I was like, "Listen," I was like, "Uncle Keith, please just chill out, relax. We're not gonna fuck." Anymore. Oh, sorry. So it's another book. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
I'm glad you said yeah, because otherwise the show just ends. Okay, Graham's written another blog about me. He's saying Jen Ives is ugly, Jen Ives is a man. Oh, okay. He's calling me a liar. He's saying that apparently I never met him at the conference. Apparently I just saw him and ran away. Which is not, I don't run. Like, I've never run. Not bravery, I don't do it. God, that's so weird, like it's so strange, like when you grow up with somebody who wrote some sitcoms that you really love, and then you find that they become obsessed with you, and they're literally writing blogs about you every other day. Like, it's a really fucking strange position to be in, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I've been thinking, like, because I did meet him at the conference, and I've been thinking, like, what could I possibly have done or said to him to make him so angry with me, to make him hate me and resent me so much, he's going to put that much time into it. So I've been going through the day in my head. So I got to the conference about 9 o'clock, and then I watched the first talk, and then we had lunch, and then I watched another talk, walked around the stalls a bit, and then Graham Linehan arrived, and I went up to him, I faced him, And I said to him, Graham, I'm your biggest fan. And I shook his hand. And that was a lie. And then I looked around the stalls a little bit more, and then something weird happened, and then I left. And me and my friend went back to our hotel. And then when we were walking through the hallway, I bumped into him again, because he was staying in the same hotel as me. And he invited me into his room. And me and Graham Linehan fucked. Passionately 4 times. And then I went to leave and he was like, Jen, he was like, no, don't leave. I think I love you. Please stay and live here with me forever. And I said, no, Graham, I'm going. I'm out of here. You're never going to hear from me again. I feel like you don't believe me. You don't think I would fuck Graham Linehan? Trans people in the room, would you fuck Graham Linehan?
No.
I would fuck him in a heartbeat. I mean, fucking, to me, as a trans woman, fucking Graham Linehan, like, to me, that's like fucking Bigfoot. I would 100% do that. Well, I'm not going to tell you whether or not I really did. I mean, I did. I did do it. Okay. To be honest, he's not like my type. He's not like my typical type. Like when you're trans, like a lot of times, like people ask you this question that's really grating, and they go like, "Oh, you're trans, are you?" And they go, "Oh, what are you into? You know, who's your type? What do you like? Do you like boys? Do you like girls? What is it?" And I always say, well, technically I'm bisexual. I've been with women. I've been with men. I at the moment, like I'm big into boys. I like boys. Boys are my thing. Who else in here? Who likes boys? Yeah. Oh no, men. Sorry. Now that's an Edinburgh twist, right? I'm a paedophile! Get used to it, times are changing. No, okay. I do, I like men. I find, so I date a lot of straight men, funnily enough. Well, at least that's what they say they are, they identify as straight or whatever. And the thing about straight men is, I don't know if you know this, I'll try and put this as sensitively as I can, but they're pieces of shit. Like they're cowards, right? And I hate dating them, because like another problem with dating straight men is like there are no apps for trans women. There are no apps that, well, there's Uber, but that doesn't count, does it? It's not technically a dating app. The only I've been lucky. The only dating app that I've ever used that I've gotten any sort of like fun out of using, because most dating apps, they're kind of like, they sort of pretend to be really inclusive. They're like, oh, come and join OkCupid, or whatever. They're like, oh, we've got like over 100 different pronouns for you to choose from. And then you choose one, and they just show you to the same fuckboys over and over. The only app I found that I enjoy using is an app called Bumble. Have you used Bumble before? So the cool thing about Bumble is it's like quite progressive. It's like with Bumble, it's like, oh, the lady is in control, And if you match with a guy on Bumble and you message him, if he doesn't reply to you within, I think it's like 24 to 48 hours, his little profile picture, his little image, his little visage, it like slowly starts to disintegrate. And I like that, I like to imagine he's fucking died. I've stopped telling guys online that I'm trans when I first match with them. I'm just trying to give myself sort of like a fighting chance, you know what I mean? But a lot of my friends, they were like really kind of upset with me about that. They were like, oh my God, you can't do that, Jen. Like that's deceptive. Like you're lying to them. You're misleading them. I kind of got under my skin because I was like, fuck you. Like a lot of these guys that I talk to, like they're deceptive. Do you know what I mean? Like they lie about themselves like more than I ever have. Like I matched with this one guy on an app, and when I first matched with him, his whole like tone was like kind of like different. Do you know what I mean? Like when I first matched with him, he was like, oh baby. He's like, oh baby, I'm gonna treat you like a princess. What's funny about that? You don't think that's a convincing voice? That voice got me from secondary school, that voice. He's like, oh baby. He's like, come out with me. I'm a manly man. He was like, I'm gonna treat you like a goddamn princess. He's like, I'm gonna wine you. I'm gonna dine you. And he did do those two things, but then, that night, when I got back to his flat, he had in his room, on his bed, what I can only describe as like an otter bedspread. Do you know what? I don't mean it was made of real otter. Like, that would be sick. That would be like, wow, this guy's a provider. Do you know what I mean, it was like a duvet, and then on one side there were like loads of little otters. Yeah. And then you flip it over, and there's one big otter. Now, I don't know if anyone in this room has received penetrative anal sex on an otter bedspread. But it seriously makes you reevaluate your life decisions. Now listen, every night I wonder if I'm gonna, follow through with this bit, and every night it seems to sell out, so I have to. So if there's anyone at the back of the room that is interested in what the real life of a trans woman is like, I encourage you to stand up and have a look. So anyway, so he's fucking me in the ass on an otter bedspread. And I'm sort of like having a kind of out-of-body experience, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of like looking around the room. Oh, did you like that bit? That's 20 weeks of a clowning course paying off. So I'm sort of like looking around the room, like just trying to find something that communicates maturity. I look down, sure enough, the pillows have a huge otter head on them. I can't look there, it looks too much like bestiality. I look on his wall and there's a Pulp Fiction poster, that's not doing it for me. And then I see in the corner of the room, I see like a wooden oak banker's desk, sort of like a bureau kind of thing, and I was like, oh, this is a good sign, this is something that a man has. This is something like a child doesn't have to wouldn't have a bureau de change. So I decided to sort of like focus on that, and I am having a nice time, so my eyes are kind of out of focus, but as they start to focus, I then notice on this wooden oak banker's desk, like a line of over approximately 100 well-painted Warhammer 40,000. And now I don't know where to look, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to do. I turn around, I'm like, did I ID you? Did we do this? Listen guys, full disclosure, by the way, I've done this bit probably about like 20 times now, and I still haven't found a graceful way to come out with it. So I don't know how much longer of the show I've got, but I've got two choices. I can either do the rest of the show like this, which I've not tried yet, or I could sort of try and get out of it in the same way that I usually do in real life. I think I'll go for that. Oh no, don't cry. Oh great, okay. You can clap while I have a little drink. I'm really good at giving blowjobs as well. Anyone else in the crowd good at giving blowjobs? Okay, lovely. Any cis women in the crowd who like giving blowjobs? Okay, this is interesting to me. This is interesting to me. Because the thing is, I am good at giving blowjobs. Like, I'm really good at it. Like, I'm sort of like the throat goat. Do you know what I mean? I'm sort of like, treat my head like an object. Like, I'm really good at it. And my mum, before she died, she said to me, if you're good at something, you should pursue it. And but I'm not going to let her die in vain. You know what I mean? But the thing is, like, I ask audiences this because I genuinely, I'm not the most sexual person, but like blowjobs is something I'm really good at, and I like bragging about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm great at it. So I like to ask audiences, and I want someone to talk to about it, about how good I am at it. But every time I ask audiences, cis women in the audience, they always say the same thing. They always go, oh no, And that's what you sound like, by the way. They go, oh no, I don't like it. I do not like giving blowjobs. I will not do it. I will not. Unless it's his birthday. And then maybe I give him a little blowjob if it's his birthday. And it kind of spun me out a little bit, because I was like, okay, like people like Graham Linehan, these people, like one thing they accuse trans women of is they're like, oh, you're not really you're just a gay man. You're just a gay man, right? And I was like, okay, so cis women don't like giving blowjobs, but I do. And I was like, maybe he's right, you know, like, oh my God, like I was having a bit of an existential crisis at one point, do you know what I mean? But then I kind of remembered to breathe, and I chilled out a bit. And I just thought, well, maybe I'm just like a different type of woman, you know? Just a different type of woman. Maybe I'm just more kind of like the Frankie and Benny Zapp of women, right? In that, if a man tells me it's his birthday, I'm not going to look too far into it, you know? Like, you want a free dessert? Like, oh my God, I can't believe people laughed at that one. Like, every night I wonder what the significance of Frankie and Benny still is. Like, I wonder if it's still... I haven't been in one for about 10 years. Does it still exist? Do they still have that promotion? I'm too busy sucking dick. Alright, cis women, I want you to know that I love you and that you're welcome here. And some of my best friends are cis women. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm glad that you're here. But can I just ask you a question? Does this sound familiar to anybody in the room, okay? Get out, this is my toilet. Get out of my toilet. You're in my toilet. You're ruining it. This is my toilet. Get out. Why are you in my toilet? You've ruined everything. This is my sacred space. I come here to do 3 things. Pee, poo, and pray. Get out of my toilet. I didn't die in the suffragette movement. For you to come in here and use my suffragette toilet. You see that name on the porcelain there? You see that Kimberly Clark? That's me. That's me, and this is my toilet, and you've ruined everything. Yeah, sound familiar? I feel like trans women are having to deal with that a lot these days, and the discourse about, you know, toilets and stuff like that is kind of like, I'm kind of done with it. But it's so fucking annoying. Like, I've been using the women's toilets for years and years and years, and now people are just like, oh, you can't do it anymore. And I kind of like throw my hands up, like, I don't care anymore. I'm like, fine. You know what, cis women, fine. If you really don't want me in there, I don't want to upset you. Like, I won't go in there. Like, I won't use it. That's fine. It's yours. You take it. But if I'm not allowed to use the women's toilets, cis women, you are not allowed to spend your hen night at GAY anymore. Thank you. You can spend it down the dog tracks like it's 1995. You know? Have fun, that's our culture. I've been doing this new thing, right, well, when I go into a women's toilet. If I go in there, and there's a mum in there with her toddler son. For anyone wondering, this bit is what this is for. It's called theatre. So if I go in there, and she's there with her toddler son, and she's like, oh, Toby, behave yourself. I'll look at him, and I'll look at her, and I'll look at the door, and I'll kind of start to move in closer, as close as I legally am allowed to. And then I'll start backing away, and I'll go, help! Help! He's trying to molest me! Right? There's a double standard bringing him in here. Like, at least I've gone to some effort. You can at least put him in a dress. I feel frightened. I will attack. I like kids. Who's got kids? I tell you the kids that I like the most. I like trans kids, okay? They're my I like kids. Thank you. thank you. But what do we think about trans kids generally? Do we think that trans kids should be allowed to start puberty-blocking hormones from a young age?
Yes.
Okay, go off, Queens. I love it. I do. Relax, I do. I also think they should be allowed to. I think if I had been given the opportunity to start puberty-blocking hormones, I think I'd be a lot happier these days. I think I'd look better, I think I'd have more confidence, things like that. But I have a slightly more controversial opinion on this subject. Not everybody agrees with me. I think that trans kids should be allowed to use puberty-blocking hormones. But I also think all kids should be given puberty-blocking hormones from a young age, right? And hear me out. I know it's controversial, but I talk to parents. You know, I know some cis parents, and they all say the same thing. They all have the same story, really, where they go, "Oh, I love my Toby. He's the light of my life. He's my shining star. He's my angel. But I'll always remember him best when he was this big." But then he grew up and he became a teenager and he stopped kissing his mum and he killed that postman. I'm just saying, you need to sort it out, parents. Another like a big criticism against trans kids that I hear a lot is they go like, "Oh, but what if they're not trans though? You know, what if they're gay? What if they are a gay? Not a trans, a gay. What if my child is a gay?" And I think that's like such a funny sort of argument against it, because I like to think that I've got a pretty good idea of where we are, sort of like as a society. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like I can feel it, and I don't think we've come along that much, actually, for that to be acceptable. Like, there's nothing I love more, to be honest, and I've seen this before, there's nothing I love more than seeing like a big, gammony, sort of like straight dad, like convince himself that he's like okay with having a gay son over a trans child, right? Like, they're not trans, they're gay, and I can't wait until they grow up and fuck loads of men. I can't wait, but he'll be a top. He'll be a top like his dad, a top bloke. Everyone's obsessed with biology at the moment, right? They used to be more nuanced, right? It used to be like, oh, but what about philosophy? You know, what about everyday lived experience? You know, stuff like that. But now people are like, no. Like it's if you've got a vagina, it's all about that. Like I went to school with this boy called Daniel. I went to an all-boys school, which I loved. Crazy halcyon days, but anyway, like Daniel, we were like best friends. Like we were in a band together, and like I'm very ashamed of that. So don't look us up. Like, thank God MySpace died. Right? But we were in a band. We were really close, and then 10 years ago, like I came out to him. I came out to everybody, and he didn't take it well at all. You know, and we fell out, and we didn't talk for 10 years. Because he lives near where my dad now lives, recently I bumped into him in the street, and I was like, oh my God, it wasn't awkward. I was like, oh my God, Daniel, we just sort of like picked up where we always had. I was like, Daniel, it's so lovely to see you. Like, and he was like, yeah, it's lovely to see you. And I found myself, it was like a really surreal situation, something I never thought would happen. I found myself sitting in his bedroom, where I had like done band practices and things like that, like where I had like spent loads of my teenage years. And it's crazy, right? Because over 10 years, like I've changed loads, but he hasn't changed at all. Like he still lives in the same house with his mum. I'm sitting in his room and I'm like, oh my God, like there's his guitar, like it's the same. It's like, oh my God, like there's his Pulp Fiction poster. I was like, there's his hamster. Different, it is a different hamster, but it's the same cave. Yeah, and it was like really crazy, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, God, like it's such a shame that we fell out. Like, why did we fall out? I was kind of like talking to him about it, and I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, the reason we fell out is because when I told him what my plans were, that I was trans, he was like, he begrudgingly was like, I obviously accept it, but he was like, he said to me, he was like, I will never think of you as a genuine, real woman. And you know, at that age I wasn't ready to hear that. It was really difficult for me, and then we didn't talk for 10 years. So I took the opportunity now, as we've sort of like met back up, and I said to him, like, Dan, like, do you still feel that way? Is that still how you think? And he went, honestly, Jen, he went, yeah. Like, if anything now, more than ever, like, I just don't see you as an actual woman. And I was like, okay, I was like, well, what is it to you that makes a woman? You know, what is it? And he went, I just think a woman should have a vagina. That's what he said. He was like, women should have vaginas, it's biological to me. He's like, that's just what I think. It was frustrating, but I was like, I'm gonna try, you know. And I said to him, I was like, okay, Danny, I was like, what about your hamster? I was like, you got a hamster? I was like, her name's Daisy. I was like, your hamster has a vagina. I was like, does that mean that your hamster, technically in your eyes, is more of a woman than I am? Is that what that means? And I could see that he was kind of in a corner, but he like doubled down, and he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I guess so. He was like, I guess so. But it was good because I had a bit of a revelation again, you know. I was like, oh, I see it now, I get it. Daniel fucks hamsters. I can't get enough of that hamster pussy. Yeah, that whole lead up was just so I could say you can't get enough of that hamster pussy. I don't regret it for 1 second. I got a letter recently inviting me for a cervical smear exam, which honestly, it was like the best day of my life. I was like, I've made it, you know, transition over, real life test passed. I was like, this is it. Because if you don't know, right, the reason I get that is because if you go to the doctor, at least this is how it was when I first came out, if you go to the doctor and you say to the doctor, oh, I feel like I'm trapped in the wrong body. Like you lie, right, if you do that. All they do at first is they change on the computer your gender marker from an M to an F. That's all they do. And because it's the NHS, and they use like Windows 93. It doesn't quite have the social sophistication. They haven't got the Judith Butler program installed. You get letters inviting you for like cervical smear exams and stuff. And I, as much as I love to get them, and I do, like I literally have one framed on my kitchen wall. I show people when they come over. I'm like, look. As much as I love getting them, I do sometimes wonder, like, what would they do if I actually turn up to it? Just laying half naked on the bed, like, you invited me? You figure it out. You liked that one, didn't you? So stand up, like, so I do this now, not this, I don't do this. There's nothing in there. I do this professionally, like this is like my job, like this is how I make money, and a lot of people think that stand-up comedy is like a really progressive job to have. They're like, oh, you must have so much freedom, you know. And you do, but the problem with stand-up comedy is what it forces you to do, a lot of the time, is it forces you to reduce yourself down to like one quite simplistic thing. And for my debut, it's, hey, I'm trans, whatever. And you know, there's much more to me than that, I think. So in a lot of ways, it's not actually that progressive of a job, really. My last job that I had, I was working in an office, and that was actually like an incredibly progressive job in a lot of ways. Like for example, like when I was working in this office, when I first went to the interview, like nobody in the interview asked me about the fact that I'm trans, like it just didn't come up, like no one cared. And I was like, oh, okay, it's interesting. And then when I got the job, like no one brought it up. And then on my first day of the job, on the office floor, like I noticed that they already had a trans person working there, and I was like, I don't like this. You know, we got ourselves an old-fashioned trans off. And then, like, as time went on, like, still nobody mentioned it, and even sometimes when I would like try and acknowledge it, like people wouldn't, they almost like wouldn't accept it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like they were just trying to be like super politically correct. It got to like an awkward point where I was like, but I am trans, like it's okay to talk about it, like we don't have to pretend that I'm not. I got like really frustrated about it, and I decided at a certain point, I was like, do you know what, like, I love this job, but if this goes on much longer, like, I am gonna have to take some maternity leave. Okay. I've said some pretty edgy things tonight, like I'm aware of that. Like, do you remember when I said that thing about bus drivers earlier? That was mad, wasn't it? Would it be okay if, just for a bit, I talked about something that isn't to do with being trans, just something that's not controversial, you know, something that's largely relatable for everybody, no matter who you are, something that when you go away from here tonight, you're not going to get in like a big debate with your family and friends about. Like, would that be okay?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I talk about J.K. Rowling just for a minute? Okay, cool. Do you know, you all know who she is, right?
Yes.
Okay, she wrote a successful book series, The Casual Vacancy. She used to be a writer. I mean, well, she actually lives around here, doesn't she? She's like from Edinburgh. She lives like up on Arthur's Seat, in a big throne made of skulls. She gets the best Twitter signal up there. She used to be a writer. She wrote this book series about this gay wizard. You know the one, I don't remember what it's called. Really camp stuff. But somewhere along the line, there's like a lot of lore around her, isn't there, here, like in Edinburgh? Have you noticed that? Like, I've never spent this long in Edinburgh and I've never really noticed it much before, but like, yeah, it's mad. Like, there's so many shops where it's like, oh, you can get like a notebook with like, I don't know, like Slytherin on it or whatever. Or you go into like a coffee shop and it's like, there's like a plaque and it's like, oh, did you know that J.K. Rowling wrote the whole of The Prisoner of Azkaban in this Pret-a-Manger? She wrote the whole of The Deathly Hallows Part 2 in this Costa Express. It's like, we don't know much about her personally, but we know she fucking loves a cappuccino. She used to write like kids' books, but one thing that she's been writing recently a lot is essays. She's kind of like rebranded as an essayist. She sometimes publishes them to like her own like website, and she wrote this like quite famous essay a couple of years ago, and everyone was messaging me about it. They were like, oh my god, you've got to read this essay. Like J.K. Rowling, she's like coming for you, trannies. Like, you've got to read it. Like, she's angry. So I was like, okay, I'll read it. You know, I don't want to criticise something or talk about it unless I've fully read it. And I first started reading it, and at the beginning I was like, okay, like she's talking about some quite dark stuff that happened to her. I empathise with her. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Do you know what I mean? And then you get a little bit further down the essay, and she starts to say some stuff that I don't agree with. But I was like, okay, do you know what? I don't agree with it. I would fight to the death for your right to say it. Maybe not the death. I'll flail my arms out a little bit. And then I got a bit further down, and she starts to say some like mad shit that I couldn't abide, you know. Like, one of the things that she says in this essay is that she says that she doesn't think that trans women should be allowed to use women's spaces, right? She thinks that people that look like me, she thinks on an everyday basis, she thinks I should have to use the men's room. She thinks I have to use the men's toilets. I was like, what? But I remember the first time I read that, I was like, don't threaten me with a good time. You don't know what I like, bitch. Like, I could be more trouble in there than anywhere else. Like. Audacity of her. So my flatmate, right, she's a cis woman. And we live together, we're allowed, you can check. I've been DBS checked. She's really lovely, like I love her to bits. When we first met though, she was like a huge Harry Potter fan. Like the biggest, and this was back when you were allowed to be that. She had like a Harry Potter t-shirt on, she had like a Harry Potter notebook and stuff. And it was interesting, you know, it was interesting seeing her journey, because over the years now that J.K. Rowling has become more openly transphobic and more prejudiced in other ways as well, to be honest. My flatmate, who was like, honestly, I mean, it's like a huge Harry Potter fan, it was like a big part of her life. She made the decision without any input from me, like she literally made the decision to move away from those books and move away from her as an author, and essentially she chose her trans friends over her love of Harry Potter, and I don't know, I thought that was really sweet, and I think it's really admirable, and I really appreciate it. Unfortunately for her though, when she was a big Harry Potter fan, she got like multiple Harry Potter tattoos, sort of like various parts of her body, right? And I really do feel sorry for her. I really do, but I do like to fuck with her sometimes as well, right? So, for example, I remember once she was coming out of the shower, and I was like, oh, I was like, what's that on your leg there? I was like, is that a tattoo of a Quidditch broom? And she was like, oh, no. I just really love sweeping. And I remember most recently, I saw one that I'd never seen before because it's been so hot. She was wearing more short sleeve tops. And I was like, oh, what's that on your upper arm there? I was like, that's not the symbol for the Deathly Hallows, is it? And she was like, oh, no. Aryan Brotherhood. So I've got one more sort of like routine, one more bit to do, and like it's about Graham and Anne, obviously. So, oh sorry, one second. Yeah, he's written another one. It says. It says Jen Ives is a man, Jen Ives is ugly, want to go in fire, all that kind of shit. But it also says that he has become aware that I've been talking about him on stage over the past 3 weeks. And that if I continue to do so, he says that he'll press like legal action against me, actually, and sue me. And I don't know if you know this, but like a lot of gender critical TERFs, like they do, like J.K. Rowling has done this to trans people before in the past. Like it's a way to silence us, and it's a real shame because it was like a really funny bit. Like there was an accent, but yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing it. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. I guess what I could do is. I don't want to shortchange you guys, so I could wrap up the show it won't be funny, but I could wrap up the show just tell you what my general themes was about, like what I was trying to say, like what the point of the show is. I guess the point of the show was just trans women, we're just like you, we're just normal people, we should be allowed to have a sexuality without it being reduced to pornography. I'm not just a sex-crazed maniac, I'm not just antagonistic, I'm just trying to live my life. I don't care, again, like I said, without the accent and stuff, it's not as good. I'm sorry, I know this, I know this is going to feel like an anti-climax, but that is it, that is the end. So, I guess you can clap now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh my God, Graham, you came. You're my otter. You're my otter. Oh, I love you. Joanne! Oh my God. You know it should be a top, right? Peg me, Joanne. So look at us! Okay, that is it. That is the end now. Yeah, I'm sorry you had to see that. It's actually been quite a difficult month, and I'm working through some things, and the show is really helping. If you enjoyed the show, you can follow me there. Obviously, that whole thing I was saying before about the point of the show, and that is not true. I mean, if there is a point to this show at all, I guess all it would be is if you are in the room and you are a gender critical TERF, you can put that in your fucking blog. Thanks so much for coming. You guys have honestly, literally been the best audience that I've had so far, and I'm really happy. I was filming that one actually because, yeah, you guys are delightful. I hope you have a nice rest of your Fringe, And don't worry, I'm not going to fuck anybody else.